Good morning, Mr. White.
Good morning, Mrs. Angel. How are you on this wonderful day?
I'm wonderful. We skipped a week last week.
We
You
did.
had the COVID.
I had the COVID. I did. I had the COVID, and it wouldn't have done anyone any good to listen to my croaky voice last week. So, as rough as it sounds now, this is pretty smooth and rich compared
Well,
to what
you
it
look
was.
amazing. You look amazing, Mr. White.
Thank you.
It's great to have you back. And we have got a very special guest. Can everybody please give it up for Mr. Conor Fennell?
Hey, hi, everybody.
Oh, they are excited to see you.
Good audience in this morning.
They are. Shush, everyone.
Wow.
Down we go.
Come on.
All right. Excellent.
I feel like Taylor Swift.
Yeah, this is the Conor era, is all I can say.
I see what you did there.
It is so wonderful to have you with us, and we're going to get into everything teaching and a bit of the Irish as well, because our good friend Conor, the primary school that he attended was St. John's National School in Dublin, Ireland, and the secondary school that he went to was the Cabinteely Community School, also in Dublin. And the tertiary institution that he attended was St. Angela's College in Sligo in Ireland. Tell us a little bit more about what Conor's been up to, Mr. White.
I will. So first and foremost, Conor is a very proud Irishman, a home economics teacher by trade, and now the expert workforce assistant principal in Catherine High School in the Northern Territory. Since arriving to Australia in 2012, he has worked across several states and territories, mainly in regional and very, very remote areas. His passion for supporting teachers to build their own capacity has seen him complete further master's research and being awarded the Commonwealth Bank Schools Plus Teaching Fellowship, the Australian Councils for Educational Leaders New Voice in School Leadership Scholarship, and the Big Rivers Regional Secondary Educator of the Year Award. My goodness. Over his career, he has worked in a variety of roles, including leading and senior teacher curriculum development, a short online lecturing role during the pandemic, which shall not be named. I don't blame you. And based on that last sentence, it's obvious that Conor is a keen Harry Potter fan, an avid reader in general, and he loves nothing more than spending quality time with his partner and dog and enjoying fine food and wine, preferably in exotic locations around the world, which he states is the main reason that he can't afford to buy a home. Welcome, Conor.
Yay!
Cheers, thanks for that.
So
it's true.
good.
That's why I can't afford to buy a home.
Yes. Yeah, wine and food, that's expensive stuff, isn't it?
I love it. And even Mr. White and I, he's too fancy to join us in celebrating his fine heritage tonight. We've gotten right on board with the whiskey fanatics of the Ireland country. So, but we've got so much to talk about, Conor. So let's kick off with our number one question that we always ask our guests. Who is the teacher who has the most positive impact on your life?
Yeah, this one was a really easy question to answer. I always have her in the front of my mind when I'm asked who was that one teacher, and it was Miss Louise Walsh. Even saying her first name still sounds really funny when it comes out, because I'm used to like Miss Walsh. So saying Louise, I'm like, oh. But yeah, I had Louise Walsh as my home economics teacher from year 7 right up to year 12. And she was, I suppose, how I describe her, like just a quintessential teacher. Traditionally strict, I suppose, back then when I was, 12, 13, she had very firm expectations and was pretty clear on what she expected from me. But I think now that I am a teacher, and kind of reflected back on my time in school as well, I think she just had high expectations for the young people that she was working with. Cabinteely itself kind of serves quite a low socioeconomic community in that general area, and I think the students that present to Cabinteely might not have been able to see much of a future beyond that, but Louise certainly could for them, and she certainly did for me, which is she's definitely part of the reason why I am where I am today. She did that too in a way that it was never kind of, I expect this, and I never felt as if she thought that she didn't have a way of getting us there. She used to say to me, I know you can do this, and this is how you're going to do it. She used to give me like so much extra work because she knew I wanted to be a teacher. But to get into teacher education courses in Ireland, particularly Bachelor of Education courses, is actually quite difficult. So we work on a point system, and I think the year I got into home ec, I think out of 600 points, you needed like 450. So it's up there with the professions. So yeah, she's giving me extra work to make sure I got an A, and she'd like constantly be telling me what extra things I needed to be doing. And I think coming from my parents, who kind of taught me the value of hard work, having Louise there, she kind of instilled that in me in terms of education and finding a passion and purpose in learning. And I always love learning. Like I read so much, and I love just what you get from it. Even Harry Potter, there's a lot to be learned in Harry Potter too.
Oh yes,
but Louise is kind of adding in those elements of. Do you agree?
I do. I'm a Harry Potter fan too. Yeah.
But Louise added in those elements of No, go on, Whitey.
No, I was just saying, isn't it amazing how, when you're at school, the perception you have of your teachers is very, very different once you become a teacher and you start sort of seeing things from their perspective. It really does shift things around. Did you find that very often?
Yeah, and, I even sometimes, and I think I mentioned earlier that, like, I nearly style myself sometimes on Louise. I still use some for quotes, which is things like, we always used to leave the wooden spoons in the pots. And she'd come around, she'd be like, we're not cooking wooden spoons today. Or, you'd be super excited about your buns in the oven, and you'd open the oven constantly and put your head in to check. And she'd be like, you're not baking your face. I still say that. And I still say it to my kids as well. But just overall, I think it's just, you kind of see why they did it now. I think when I was back in school, I was just like, oh, they're just really hard and they're just pushing really hard. But now I go, they were pushing hard, but they were supporting through their delivery of curriculum, through, the way they assessed you, everything. And yeah, Louise always stands out to me in that she was just that teacher who always just kind of saw something in me and pushed me hard enough, but then supported me to go further and even more and beyond that, because then I went on to uni. Originally wanted to teach history and English because it was the easiest course to get into at the time. And then I said, nah,
Whitey's
I
an
actually
English
think...
and a humanities teacher. That's awkward. Yes.
Well, it was a general arts degree. Yeah, so back then it was... So you had your Bachelor of Education subjects, which are your practical subjects in Ireland, and then you had your general arts or general science degrees. And I just kind of thought, if I go in and do that and then do the PME afterwards, like, I'm still going to become a teacher. And I, as I said, love English and love history, but loved home ec and loved Louise and her teaching of home ec. And thought that I could maybe do that job too. So I ended up actually, becoming a home economics teacher then, and styling myself on her.
That is so cool. And does she know, obviously, so does she know that you became a home economics teacher?
Yeah, she actually, on the day I got we call it the Leaving Cert in Ireland, year 12 results, and on the day I got my Leaving Cert results, another teacher from school had texted her. She was away. I think she was in Portugal drinking wine, actually.
Perfect. She's our person.
Yeah, of course.
Nice.
Yeah, she would be. And yeah, she actually rang me from Portugal to like congratulate me. And
Cool.
She was delighted that I got the results. And yeah, I've met up with her a couple of times since. Like, she gave me a big box of resources when I first started uni, old textbooks, things that she thought it might come in handy. I've bumped into her so many times since in like our local supermarket when I am home in Ireland. In fact, a good friend of mine now teaches in the same school that I went to, Captain Teeley, and now works at Louise as well. So yeah, she's always got a bit of an in my life.
Fabulous. And so she knows the heights that you've gone on to and the impact that you're having in education now?
So this is really interesting, because when I won the CommBank Award, I actually thought about texting Louise just to let her know and, thank her for everything she did. And it was just in that moment, just quite emotional, and, kind of wanted to reach out to the family and the friends who kind of helped me to get there. And I never did. And I maybe just things got busy or whatever. And then literally, obviously, you asked if I could come on. And then I saw the question. I was like, this is now, I think, the option to say, cheers, Miss Walsh. Thanks for everything. So yeah, this will be listened to in Ireland, hopefully in a couple of days or weeks.
Yes.
Fabulous. Hey, and maybe we'll organise to interview her and hear about her educational life. And so it'd be great to interview somebody from Ireland and share her story, because obviously it's having an impact in globally now. I love that you've modelled your teaching on her. That is super, super, super cool.
Yeah, she was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We don't want to call you Louise because that would be rude. So thank you so much to Miss
Miss
Walsh,
Walsh.
for the impact that
Yes, go
you've
Miss
had.
Walsh.
What a
Yes,
legend.
and
Thank
I'm
you.
sure Connor was a joy to teach, and never caused you any trouble at any stage.
Oh, actually, funny. I'll add to that. So she did leave for a while. She went down on maternity leave, and we did have a relief teacher, and I wasn't very good for that relief teacher. So much so that I actually had to sign a contract to say I would pass my home economics exam in year 8. Yeah, and Louise didn't tell us she was coming back, and this relief teacher was leaving. And I remember standing outside her classroom on the Monday morning, like getting ready to go in and cause some trouble. And next minute, Louise comes around the corner, and she was just like, "I'm ready." I was like, "Oh no!"
Oh, no, I'll be good. I'll be good. I signed a contract. I'll be good.
I had no choice. It was like I didn't get a choice of being good or bad. It was like you did what you were told to do, and you did it well. And she would help you if you were doing the right thing. She gave you the support. So yeah,
that,
it was
that sums
the
it up
best and worst
beautifully.
moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so beautiful that you didn't have a choice, but you didn't have a choice to give your best to that teacher. And I think that's the best teachers.
That's it.
Kind of take that choice out of your hands, because as a teenager you're in cognitive overload all of the time, and there's so much going on for you. But if you just know what a teacher expects and that they're going to really celebrate you and support you, then straight away, then it turns out you can just flip your behaviors from being quite the naughty little boy to being able to want to be just like her and be able to emulate some of her teaching styles as well.
Yeah, no, she's cool.
So cool. So let's talk a bit more about the Teaching Award and some of the things that you're doing up in the Northern Territory. Really exciting stuff. There's some amazing educators up in the Northern Territory. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, we are really lucky in the NT, and I often count my blessings as to how amazing the staff are who we get up here, and to come to work in, some really complex environments that can often be very challenging, especially if they have work down south, or in other locations that they mightn't have, had that certain clientele or had those styles to present before. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. But the NT is a great place. I do call myself a Territorian. After Irish, that obviously comes first, and then I'm a Northern Territorian. And yeah, look, I came up here in 2015. I worked in a small community on the west coast called Wadair. And in fact, I was a bit disenfranchised with my teaching and education in general at the time, and kind of said, I really want to do this job, and I want to do it well, and I want to actually give back to maybe, communities that actually really need it. And over that 4 years I was in Wadair, I worked really hard in trying to refine some skill. And I think that's something that the NT gives, is opportunities to come up and really, I say, learn your stripes, because you don't just get them, you don't just get the captain's stripe on your collar. You really need to learn a lot about the people, the students, the communities, the families you're working with, and obviously the style of education too, and different tools in the toolkit that you might not use in other places, but you need to make some tools for that toolkit, which happens quite a lot.
Absolutely. We want to know more about those tools. So I feel like I want to pause you there, and so tell us about that. So you had taught, that wasn't your first teaching gig when you went to the Northern Territory, so you knew some stuff. And so what were some of those biggest kind of learnings, and then some of those really important tools that you have in your toolkit now?
Yeah, awesome. I think the main one would probably be around like classroom management, and building relationships with young people. So where I had worked in the past, it was very much curriculum driven and curriculum focused. You were a teacher that was there to deliver and get really good results as best as possible. And I love that, and I love seeing students succeed in any way, shape, or form. I just felt like there was that kind of collective piece, and something that I wasn't necessarily giving, that I wanted to give. That's why I became a teacher. So when I came to the NT, the biggest challenge for me was around that classroom management, and I say dealing, but what I mean is like managing the environment and the space that you're in, so that students feel like they want to come in there, that they feel welcome there, that they you know, want to kind of get through the work that you have set up for them. It's not necessarily like this is how you're going to get the A or the B and you just need to get through this hour. It's actually, okay, come in, let's see how we go, let's track. So classroom management skills was definitely something that I really honed in on very early on in the NT. And I actually completed quite a bit of training over in Queensland to learn all about the essential skills, and then did a lot of work around classroom profiling as well after that, and being observed quite a bit. I actually went to count the amount of times I've been observed in the last 8 years up here, and it's just page after page after page. But just getting that really good feedback, and I was really fortunate as well. And again, just the NT, I was given a coach very early on, who actually supported me through some of those challenges I was having. So, you know, building that skill of classroom management and then being supported by an actual coach. I think they were two of the things that I built, and I actually ended up going on to do a coaching qualification then. And a major part of my role now is to support teachers in their classroom management skills, while also coaching them to build those capacities as well. So yeah, they're kind of two of the things that I learned very early on, were the skills I needed in the toolkit to be able to look after myself, I suppose, and then also look after the young people that were in front of me as well. And now in my current role, look after the staff that I'm working with also.
Yeah,
so
fabulous.
In your mind, how do you create an environment that is welcoming and accepting of everyone in the classroom? How do you manage your classroom?
Yeah, so look, I'm quite systematic in my approach to this. So we've obviously got at the moment in our current school, like our school values, and then from those values I create associated expectations for my students. Nothing too laborious. It's all just based on, there's 4 school values, so we have 4 expectations. And then I have a chat with them very early on about, well, what does this look like, sound like, and feel like in home economics? And we have a bit of a 20-30 minute session around that, and then get a big poster that all goes up on the wall, and then it's referred back to all the time, so that students feel like they've had a contribution to not just these really abstract, maybe conceptual values that they hear about, but they don't really know what it looks like, sounds like, and feels like. Positive recognition, and that's the best relationship builder for me. It's just telling students when they're doing the right thing. And you've probably heard that one, and I actually heard it in uni. Don't smile before Easter. Well, that went out the window, and just being friendly and approachable and supportive, that was something that I found really worked as well. And then, but also being really systematic in your approach to managing behaviour issues, classroom management issues, because they do happen. And some of the schools in the Northern Territory, in fact across the world really, some of them are quite complex. And you do need to kind of refine some of those skills, and use some different ones. So just being really systematic, giving lots of opportunities for students to actually demonstrate positive behaviours, and then being really consistent but fair and respectful in the follow through. So natural consequences. So if they throw a piece of paper, they pick that paper up, they put it in the bin. If they flick the pen off the table, they pick it up and they put it back on the table. And then giving them the opportunity to have a bit of a chat with me after class, or even just when I see them in the yard. There's a really good strategy that I use, which is the 2x10. So it's 2 minutes a day, 10 times over a fortnight. You can spread it out a little bit longer, but I remember that being adding that as part of my toolkit very early on, where those really kind of hard to reach students is what I like to say, or harder to reach. I just spent 2 minutes with them, 10 times over, try and build a bit of a relationship. I had some major success. I think of a student now on top of my head with one particular student who I'm working with now, just doing that strategy and just finding out what they like, what they don't like, how I can approach that in the classroom. And some of those things have been really successful, and have meant that there's positive classroom environments, and that's the starting point. Once you have that, I think you can do anything then.
Love it. And I think what I've just taken from you just then is that we've been educated in the same system, actually, Conor, because I talk about 2 for 5 and with my staff always. And 2 for 10's better again. But so 2 minutes for 5 days straight, and then you're going to have started to build that relationship with the student. But honestly, how weird is it the first 2 times? Can we just acknowledge that when these students are going, why are you telling me about your weekend? Like, did I look like somebody who cares about your dog? Why are you asking? No, I don't have any animals. And then you're coming back for them tomorrow because you're going to find out, have you ever wanted an animal? Have you ever thought about having an animal? So what do you like? If you don't like animals or weekends, what do you enjoy doing? But,
just walk away. I actually had that happen with a student who I was trying to with, and they just looked at me and just walked away.
Just
They're
no.
like, why are you talking to me? Yeah.
This
you learn
ties
so
into.
much.
Sorry, go on.
No, go on. Sorry, Whitey.
It just ties into this positive recognition because when I went through school, if you got attention from a teacher, it was usually because you've done the wrong thing, right? So you get corrected or you get put, told that you're doing the wrong thing, get put back. But this idea of positive recognition actually reinforces the positive thing to be done, and also the 2x10 or the 2x5. It forces a student to actually realise that you're human as well. And you can create your relationship that way as well, which is great. And I think that's great that you're doing that, Chaz, as well. So you do 2 for 5.
2 for 5. But hey, I'm now my teachers listen to this podcast at my school, Connor. So they now know that 2 for 5 is not enough. They need to be more like Connor and do 2 for 10. If 2 for 5 hasn't worked, that's because you've only done it half as long as you needed to do it for, and you need to double down and do it for another 5 days.
And interesting too. Like, I remember doing it with a particular student one time too, and the student turned around and said, "How do you remember that?" Like, they were just shocked that this teacher had taken 2 minutes to find something out about them, and then the next day we're able to go, "Oh, how was that yesterday?" And you're like, "How did you remember that?" So that, and I they might, whatever way they said it and the tone of their voice is one thing, but them recognizing that, okay, this person's taking a bit of an interest, and I can maybe open up more and build that relationship. Yeah, that's the
and Rita Pearson said, kids don't learn from people they don't like. And that makes it sound complicated. Like, so, well, how do I make the kids like me? But it's really not that complicated. The kids will like you if they think that you like them and care about them. And so straight away, they will like you. So all you've got to do to help your students to learn is show an interest in your students. But I'm simplifying it because it's not that easy. But the 2 for 10 strategy, for some students, we've always talked about, some relationships just come easy. And you just naturally build that relationship with them. You have that natural level of respect. But there's also then that 10 to 20% of kids where it doesn't come easily. And the 2 for 5 or 10 is a fabulous strategy then to use to really just get that relationship off to a really good start. And in 2 weeks, in 1 week or 2 weeks, that relationship can be totally different with that student. So, and it doesn't take that long. No. That is absolutely fabulous. I love what you're talking about, that that systematic approach, but they're not too firm. So that you're going to be likable, but then there's the fine line between being too strict and then not being likable, and so too strict and systematic, or being too laissez-faire and likable and not having any system behind you. And then you've talked about finding that happy medium there with the students where to build those relationships, but also to have some underlying systematic approach to create that sense of fairness for students. Yeah.
And I work from systems. Like, I like having a bit of a structure in my mind, and if I don't, well, then that's when I do default to those more confronting teaching strategies. So having I've done that over 12 years and built up a bit of a structure behind me to say, this works. I know this is the right approach for me and for the young people that I'm with. And it's been successful.
So good. All right. I could talk to you all day, and we're going to keep on talking about lots of these things. But I know beforehand, when we were doing a very professional pre-prep before this interview, you did say that you've got a fabulous teaching tale that you're going to share with us. So I want you to get that at the front of your mind whilst I play the intro. All right?
Yeah, awesome.
Teaching tales. Dun, dun, dun.
All right.
I love it.
Hit us, Connor. What do you got?
This is a funny story. of when I first arrived in Australia. In fact, I hadn't first arrived. I had lived in Sydney, and then I started my first teaching job, which was in Melbourne. And nobody had told me how quickly I spoke, or that I needed to slow things down when I was working with young people. So pretty hectic practical cooking lesson. I can't remember the exact students, but I remember the story. But everything was going on, 24 kids, eggs everywhere, flour everywhere, la la la. And the student came over and asked, they said, how many eggs do I need? And I said, 3. And he kind of looked at me a bit silly. And I said, go and get 3 eggs. You're not going to believe what happened next. So
I think I do.
I'm down the back of the classroom and I see this kid just walk out the door. And I'm like, what? Where are they going? So I walk over and I walk outside the door and I was like, where are you going? They're like, I'm going to get the 3 eggs. So whatever they thought 3 eggs were, I don't think I want to know. What I soon realised was that you need to say 3 eggs.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, but that has levels. That has levels as well.
Yeah.
I mean, for the student to think that eggs grow on trees as well. And actually, I think that's a plausible thing too.
Yeah, it was a year. I'm trying to think, when did I leave? So it would have been, it was a year 7 group. And I hadn't even thought that maybe, and interesting enough, actually, after that happened, and I had a bit of a law with my colleagues about it afterwards, I kind of sat in and went, actually, maybe I do need to be a little bit slower, break things down a bit more, maybe have the eggs already counted out, ready to go, so that confusion doesn't happen again. But that was my teacher. That was the funniest thing I think that's ever happened to me.
Oh, that's gold.
That is very good.
A moment of self-reflection.
Literally, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, and I wonder if that student still tells that story. Like, I wonder if they're like, I had this teacher one time.
I love it.
I wouldn't try to slow that down. I'd keep that up and just get your book down, ready to write down the next gag that the student does.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Oh, there's probably plenty of stories. That was my first year teaching too, my first teaching job. So I'm sure they've got plenty of stories.
Well, hey, if anybody's got a story about Mr. Fennell, then please, don't hesitate to send them on in, and we'll pass them along. That would be great. Other misinterpretations of a language barrier. I love it. Yeah. So Mr. White always, he loves a wisecrack.
I do.
And we've had a couple of weeks off the podcast now with his illness. So I'm sure that I know he's been teaching online, haven't you, Whitey?
I have, yes.
Excellent. So I'm sure he's just been sitting at home just storing up his wisecracks. So let's see what Whitey's weekly wisecrack was for this week.
Whitey's weekly wisecracks. What do you got, Mr. White?
Yeah, that's still my favourite sting. Okay, so yes, last week was COVID, but the week before that, I was on Year 7 camp for the whole week, and I've got
you COVID. Perfect.
I've got a bunch of stories to talk about. One of which is a wisecrack. Now, most of my wisecracks come from a yearning to entertain myself, and this is one of those. So if you don't get it, it's fine. We finished dinner one evening, and the dessert was these little mini apple pies. Beautiful. The kids love them. And there were a few left over, and they said, does anyone want seconds for dessert? Every kid's hand went up. Every kid's hand. They said, well, we don't have enough pies. We'll cut them in half, and we should have enough. So, and we'd already sort of started cleaning up, so we were trying to usher the kids outside, and they grabbed their half pie, and they were eating it and dropping stuff on the ground in the carpeting over the thing. I said, no, outside. Take them outside. Take your 1.57s outside. And I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. And then the next student started dropping stuff out of his half pie or her half pie. And I said, take your 1.57 outside, please.
What are you talking about?
So, okay. What is pie? Pie is 3.14.
Oh, 3.14.
Yes.
How good is that? Is that hilarious, or was that no kid got it? No one got it. Everyone's looking at me as I'm an absolute lunatic, but I'm having the time of my life, yelling out, "Take your 1.57s outside!"
Honestly, those Poor kids. What night of the camp was it that you pulled this out? Everybody was hadn't slept more than 2 hours a night.
Yeah, I think it was Wednesday night. I think I'll tell you more about Tuesday and Wednesday night at another time.
I actually thought you were talking about pies in the maths, and I said, surely not.
I know you thought that surely an English and humanities teacher, surely he can't come out with something that's
witty, intelligent, insightful.
Oh, sadly, this is the existence that I live good. With this man. Well done. Well done, Mr. White. Awesome. All right, Conor, we have also prepped you for a magical moment, that moment with a kid when you know that as a teacher, you've absolutely changed your life. So getting that one at the front of your mind. Magical moment.
That's my second favourite.
Go for it.
Magical moment, not as funny. So came across a young lady who was just having a bit of a rough time. She just moved from another community outside or in the NT, but just a bit of away from here, and just having a bit of a rough time, just making some friends and getting to know her people. And she kind of left her group and in back where she was from, and just kind of struggling through. And came across her one day, and she kind of just laid it all out, how she'd been feeling, and how things were going, and things where she was struggling a little bit, just kind of with those social dynamics and with just schoolwork in general. And she was finding it was all kind of becoming a bit too much. And we just had a really good chat. I felt like at the time it was very much just my day to day, just what I do as a teacher and supporting young people. But World Teachers Day came up a couple of weeks after that. And one of the colleagues that I had used to get her students to write like nice little letters to their teacher, and I actually had never received one prior to that. So, but on that year I got one, and it was from that student, and it was a beautiful little thank you for that day and how much it helped her, and how she'd started to find her feet a little bit after a conversation, and she really appreciated the help. And I think it was just. I'm getting a bit ill. It was just in that moment that I was like, right, so even though, from the day, as for me at the time, it's very much just the day-to-day, what I do in my job, there is a more important impact to that, and even sometimes even a bit special, not just for the young person, but for me as well. So, yeah, here's my little story.
That's so beautiful. And such an important thing for teachers and want to be teachers and assistant teachers and administration staff, all of those interactions with these young people, with where their brain is at. And you couldn't pay me enough money to go back and go through puberty again and go through that self-doubt and all of that stuff. And just to have that moment of connection with an adult who sees them and wants to pause their life to be able to listen to them. It's so meaningful. And as teachers, that's our job. We get paid to do that and have that impact. It is so amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, it is. And we have this saying that every interaction matters. It's what we say to each other all the time in where I work. And I think that particular interaction was very much, for me that day, that was like, yes, that's proof that, every single interaction, be it with a student, parent, member of the community, another teacher, they walk away and you want them to walk away feeling happy and better about what came before. So, yeah.
I love that. Every interaction matters. I'm taking that back to my schools.
I'm stealing that as well.
That's great. Well, whether you were giving it or not, I was taking it, in case you're wondering.
That's another classic from my boss. So I stole the aircon one, and that's another one from him as well, that we're all like, yeah, we like that, we'll keep it.
Yeah, that's
so I love it. So I want to talk a little bit about your school, and I want to do a whole episode on your school because I am fascinated by your principal, Nick Lovering.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
That's him. Yeah.
Excellent. So can you tell us a little bit about your school and why it has been in the media in the last year or so?
Yeah, it's we've done the rounds of the front end of some newspapers, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
So look, Catherine High would be what we would now consider a bit of a turnaround school. So back just before 2021, It is declined quite rapidly and very quickly over kind of a 3 to 5 year period. And in fact, when I first arrived, I just come off the back of that lecturing stint, where I was telling student teachers, never go to a school that hasn't got this process and that process and you need all the support. And when I arrived in Catherine High, there wasn't really much of that. And what we saw that play out then was that student behaviour wasn't being well managed, collaboration across the school to even try and support that wasn't really happening. It was very much people working in isolation and silos. And yeah, just a space that, we had 16 teachers leave in one term. That was term 1 of 2021. Yeah, so we hit a bit of a crisis point. I suppose you could say it was a breaking point in term 1 of 2021. And then Nick came in. I won't call him the saving grace, but he came in, and Nick's a great visualizer, and he can see the forest from the trees, I suppose. And he was able to kind of see what needed to be done very quickly. So we had to make some really big calls very early on. But then also able to see what needed to happen down the line and be very strategic. So what we've done since then is we've really firmed up our behaviour management system, or our positive school culture system is what we've renamed it to now, which sees kind of every student being rewarded for positive behaviour and demonstrating that, and then us obviously supporting teachers to roll it out in their classrooms. Last year we launched our school-wide instructional model, which is contextually based, so it's not an off-the-shelf. Myself and our head of campus spent just over a year, trying to map that out. And that came with a whole suite of resources. Of course, a beautiful big poster for the classroom, along with an instructional playbook based on Jim Knight's work and some of the recommendations from him. We also used some of the strategies from Doug Lemald's Teach Like a Champion, which were very relevant to us, even though, it was based out of America, but some of the schools that he was working with, some of those schools in New York, were very similar parallels in terms of teaching strategies. We bunged that into a playbook. And then I came in on top of that as an assistant principal last year then to support our staff to actually develop the capacities in the positive school culture system and the school-wide instructional model, and actually roll that out in their classrooms. So we also implemented our performance growth cycle, which hadn't been a thing before. So teachers said we had that kind of living, walking, talking, breathing document that we could put some goals into for our staff. One of which is based on the positive school culture and the school-wide instructional model, and just framed it up across the board, I suppose, so that teachers can go in and teach, students can go in and learn, and they can do that in a positive classroom environment where behaviour is well managed, or classroom environments are well managed, I should say, and then they have that layer of support on top through instructional observations, coaching and mentoring, and that can support them to actually do the job that they obviously set out to do all that while ago. Nick has been a great leader in there. I think what he did was kind of pinpoint a couple of people or some things that were really important and needed to be done, and put some people around those, so championed some of those strategies, and then put somebody in to actually be the champion for those strategies. And I think that's been really successful. We've seen some massive growth, not that people actually want to come to Catherine now. Obviously, we've had some really positive media in the last couple of years, and we've had a couple of awards. And yeah, people are talking about it, and in the right way, and our community are starting to trust us again. And that's my thing. I'm a community kid. I went to a community school, and the school was the hub. It was the activity. You went to everywhere. Like, everyone went to the school for something, and be it that you left, you came back for footy or sport the night after, or you had breakfast club in the morning. Adult education classes were happening, and those things that we are in our longer plan. We want to make the school that hub for the community, and have the community talking about us in the right ways. And yeah, I think the feedback has been pretty positive. And this is all very anecdotal, but so far so good. The energy's there. Like, we're feeling the energy is definitely at a different level than what it was back in 2020.
Oh, you are snowballing is what's happening, and you're reaching that tipping point is what it sounds like in what I've been reading. And I've been fascinated by the Catherine State High School story. I can't get enough of it. And it's so cool to get to talk to you, having been there and been such a big part of that change, and kind of been seeing the before and the after of when you do change some things in your school. Just because it's always been that way, it doesn't have to always be that way. And I think that there's a lot that so many schools can learn from Catherine State High School and the ways that it was turned around and yeah, so hearing stories such as this. So if there's people out there around the world who are experiencing similar kind of experiences in their schools right now, it's not all the end of the world by any stretch. It can be turned around. And so yeah, I urge you to read a bit about the Catherine State High School story. And there's, like you said, more and more media is coming out about Catherine State High School.
And, I remember back in 2020, I'd been at a conference in Korea a couple of years prior to that, and I can't remember the guy's name. I know Peter was his first name, but he said the brightest light is at the darkest part of the tunnel, right? So we were in a pretty deep, dark tunnel back in 2020, but there was kind of a core group of staff there that is still there now who kind of said, there is brilliance here. We just need to aim for the brilliance and get the brilliance. And I think, yeah, I don't like to say we're there because I still think we have quite a lot of consolidation to do. So that's kind of my main task, and our main task this year is to really consolidate some of that work and make it the norm for Catherine High. But we're definitely on a good trajectory to the bright side. That's for sure.
Absolutely, and I think when as a teacher or in education, if you ever say that we're there and we've done it and our job's done, then you're a little bit deluded even. So I love that you've said that it doesn't matter how good it has gotten. And I know what I've read, where it's come from and where it is now, it's just, what you're doing for those kids and the staff and how people feel about the teaching profession is profound. But so I love that you're saying we're not done yet. There's more to do, because there's always more to do. No matter how good it is, we've got to be striving for a little bit more and that little bit more of a stretch for our school and our students and our teachers, because teachers love feedback and then the next step. We're always looking for the next thing. It looks like Whitey has left us. That's awkward. His internet was pretty bad. And was it your dog or a dog in his neighborhood?
Yeah,
that was
my dog is barking somewhere. I was trying to usher him in, so I was banging on the side of my chair, trying to get him in, but he's
he wants to be loved and respected, obviously.
Funny, but my dog's very interesting. So he's full of routine until he realizes I've got work to do, and then he's just gonna play the maggot, right? He just goes off, he barks, he kicks things, bites things, but he's nuts. He's nuts.
I love it. And I know, so interesting to have a dog in Northern Territory has the world's largest crocodile population. So what does walking your dog look like in around a waterway in the Northern Territory?
Yeah, so in Catherine we have the river, but otherwise we're kind of pretty much central. So fine walking around the back tracks and stuff like that. If we're in Darwin though, yeah, we keep a bit of a distance from the water. My partner would often let the dog off lead, but I'm like, nah, it's too risky. Yeah, you hear all the horror stories and the bad news stories. Even with I remember actually being that wasn't Darwin, but yeah, you hear the stories of poor little doggies not meeting their
just
maker,
wanting a little
basically.
It's hot. We were talking about before the show how hot it is in Darwin. It is so incredibly hot in the Northern Territory, and so obviously a dog wants to just have a little wade in the water, and things can come unstuck pretty quickly for them in there. So it doesn't look like Whitey is going to join us. He has crashed, and so that indicates that he's out. So I know it's breaking your heart that we're not going to be able to play our Say What segment.
I'm so looking forward to it.
I know, and I have some ripper questions, and I'm not gonna lose them because I'm still hoping that we might come back for another interview, or maybe we'll interview Nick as well at some stage, and we definitely want to get Louise on here at some stage as well. So before we finish off, I wanted to throw over to you anything that you want to suggest to our listeners if perhaps they want to come to work in the Northern Territory or any way that they can engage with anything that you've talked about this evening.
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, we know there's a worldwide teacher shortage at the moment. And I think small, regional, and especially remote towns across Australia are going to really struggle. And I think we're starting to see kind of the beginnings of that now here in Catherine. So if you have anyway interested in coming to work for us, there'll always be plenty of work in the Northern Territory, and especially in Catherine, because as we were talking about the story there, the story's been pretty positive, and we're on the upward trajectory, and we're definitely on that path. So yeah, if you're interested in that, I can probably give you some contact details for myself. Reach out. You can also find more information on the Department of Education website, doe.nt.gov.au. Also, just to mention as well, the CommBank Teaching Awards the nominations are open very soon. I think it's really important that we do a whole hour of a meeting, and we give time for people to nominate staff members. So yeah, if schools are listening, maybe give some time for staff to actually nominate some of the colleagues they're working with. There's some incredible work going on around this country, and the CommBank Awards and other awards are one way of recognising some of that really positive work and putting those people on the stage where they can share some of that and also help other people across Australia too. So yeah, please think about applying for those CommBank Awards that are coming up soon.
Fabulous. Couldn't agree more. And there's so much. So I know one of the things with working in the Northern Territory, there's been some great winners of the CommBank Awards who've come out of the Northern Territory. So I've had the opportunity to learn a bit more. There's great incentives for teachers to go and work in the Northern Territory as well. And then you obviously get to work with people like Conor and at schools such as Catherine State High School, and having those impacts on students that in those remote and very remote places that they need great teachers as well. So I love that you found your spark again when you went to such a remote community and have really found your place and are having such an impact. It's been a great story to share, Conor. So thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Thank you.
All right, well, we're going to say goodbye, and we might have a part 2 with Conor at some stage. Whitey still hasn't joined us. So, hey, Mr. Fennell, good afternoon, Mr. Fennell.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Love it. All right.
I was like, I don't know your surname.
Angel. See you, Conor.
Powered by Riverside.